Welcome everybody to Art in Action. My name is Lenore Swiston. I'm the chair of Folkfest, Saskatoon's Folkfest, the organization for this event, one of the hosts. I want to recognize that we're here on Treaty 6 lands, traditional lands of the Métis and many nations, and we're here to affirm our relationship with one another. I want to begin by introducing Joseph Natao, who's going to start us in a good way tonight. Joseph Natao, please come up. Nice to see you, Kishore. Nice to see you, Daisy. These are my fellow board colleagues. They're going to be behind the scenes tonight as we moderate some of the things, and we are welcoming everybody to participate in this as you're listening to the artist. If you have any thoughts, love to see a banner on the bottom, and I know Daisy and Kishore are going to be there moderating that part of it. And back to Natalia here. Natalia, as we introduce her, she's dedicated to social justice, anti-racism, increased reproductive rights, and queer liberation. She's part of the conference committee chair for the Black Physicians of Canada, as part of the Girl Guides of Canada, and is on the board of Out Saskatoon, and is consistently contributing to Saskatchewan through endeavors such as fundraising for local organizations, adding your voice to the marginalized voices, and using your own voice for speaking at rallies, keynote conference, and creating space. Natalia, you've been an inspiration to many of us here in Saskatoon and way beyond. It's a treat to have you moderate this. It's an honor to have Joseph start us off in a good way, and thank you for doing that. And now, without further ado, as the chair of the Folkfest board, and on behalf of my colleagues that were on the screen for a moment, who will be continuing our work, thank you so much, and I look forward to the evening. Take care, everybody.
Well, thank you so much, Lenore, for that wonderful introduction. Good evening, everyone. My name is Natalia Mason. I use the pronouns she, her, and I'm super thrilled to be the moderator for this evening's panel discussion. I'm a second-generation Canadian and a settler here on Treaty 6 territory. My dad, Nestor, immigrated to Canada from the Caribbean island of St. Lucia, and my mom is from the equally exotic Melfort, Saskatchewan. I have a very deep connection to Folkfest and have been involved with the organization for nearly 20 years now. My family became involved with Folkfest through what was the Afro-Caribbean Pavilion at the time. Folkfest has become one of the most meaningful opportunities that I've had to connect with my culture as a young person. I performed on stage with the Saskatoon Caribbean Dancers. I played in the Saskatoon Caribbean Steel Band for over a decade. I've also served as a youth ambassador on more than one occasion. When we were getting ready for Folkfest, we spent the whole summer preparing for the festival, rehearsing, making decorations, rehearsing again. As a young person, I can tell you that that 3-day festival felt like it actually lasted weeks. And for those of you who have been involved with running a pavilion, I know that you know that that's true in more than one way. At the end of each night during Folkfest, you know, your ears would be ringing, your feet would be so tired, but somehow there was still this incredible energy that people had. And so I know that at my pavilion, we often turn the music back on after the patrons left, and we're dancing until the early hours of the night. My family's participation in Folkfest has created some of the most cherished memories that I have, and I'm so deeply grateful to Folkfest for the leadership opportunities and also the empowerment that it provided me in an opportunity to connect with my culture. My love of community began in the Caribbean Pavilion, and this evening I am so excited to share that connection with all of you at home and with our panelists. This evening we have 5 panelists who are going to be joining us, and they are all also artists and performers in their own right, and so they're also going to be sharing some of their artwork with us. We'll see a performance, hear from the artists themselves, and then following that, we'll also have the opportunity to do a bit of a Q&A and talk about the connection between art and inclusion. As you're joining us this evening, be sure to leave some comments. We want to hear from you. We want to hear what you have to say about all of these wonderful performances, but also about what Folkfest has meant to you. In a moment here, I am going to ask Joseph to rejoin us, but first we are going to have some opening remarks from Rhonda Rosenberg, who is the Executive Director of the Multicultural Council of Saskatchewan.
Hi, I'm Rhonda Rosenberg, the Executive Director of the Multicultural Council of Saskatchewan. We are so pleased to be able to partner with and support Folkfest in creating this special production in commemoration of March 21st, the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. This day is very important. It commemorates the killing of 69 peaceful anti-apartheid protesters in 1960. The United Nations has recognized it since 1966 and Canada since 1989. The Multicultural Council of Saskatchewan has been conducting campaigns since that time. And it's really important for us to engage ethnocultural artists in this conversation about racism that our whole community is engaging in now. And we really appreciate that Folkfest, who has always been a very strong member and partner in some of our streams of work, cultural continuity, supporting all their member organizations, celebration of diversity with that big festival that we're so used to and we'll look forward to getting back to live when conditions allow us to. And it's really fantastic to see them engaging now with important issues in our community like anti-racism. And we will continue to support them in those efforts as well as in the really great intercultural connections that are beginning to develop. So we really want to congratulate Folkfest in taking these steps forward, and I hope that everyone enjoys this broadcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to Rhonda for providing those really wonderful opening remarks. So I would actually like to invite Joseph back to join us. Joseph Natahoe is an award-winning Plains Woodland Nihiao Cree interdisciplinary artist from the Sturgeon Lake First Nation Band in Saskatchewan. His generosity and compassion for sharing cultural knowledge makes him a sought-after speaker, performer, facilitator, and outdoor educator for adults and children alike, locally, regionally, and internationally. A longtime resident of Saskatoon, he has been playing music and telling stories, both tall and short, for over 35 years. In addition to his busy schedule of performances, festivals, workshops, and residencies, he has served as a cultural advisor to various institutions such as the Indian Teacher Education Program in Saskatoon and multiple universities across Turtle Island. Joseph holds a Bachelor of Education degree from the ITEP program. He is pleased to share his creative life experience, coyote trickster tendencies, and cultural knowledge when invited to do so. And thank you so much to Joseph for joining us. I'm a big fan of your work. I actually squealed a little bit inside when I heard that you were going to be on the panel because I saw your performance in Little Badger and the Fire Spirit, and I enjoyed it so much that I actually went more than one time that summer.
Me too. Thank you very much, Natalia. I went more than once as well. I went about 30 times. So, so grateful to be part of this. I wanted to share some things I write. When something bothers me, or at this point in my life, I am starting to do more writing. The song I sang in the beginning is one of the ways that I find some kind of unity within myself and also outside of myself. And the song that I was singing was called All One People, because I was really in an place of angst, about humanity and what direction it was going. I just didn't like all the things that were happening through racism or whatever. People have different, differences and all that. But I'll tell you where I started. I was at residential school, and I started to see different kinds of people. Even there, even though I didn't know that I was of Indian descent, I didn't know that I was Cree. Nobody ever told us we were Cree, Nihio, or anything Indigenous of that nature. We might have had a little bit of study in social studies class or history. But this is one little poem I want to share, and then I want to finish it off at the end, and I'll just keep going from there. The first one is called The Handsome One. It's not about me, you know. You looked like Elvis back in the days when people knew Elvis Presley. Hair greased with sunlight soap. Your teeth were white and perfect. Boys from the north hung around you just to listen to your eloquence. Girls swarmed around like bees, your handsome face like honey. Your upper body chiseled from daily exercise I admired. My own body skinny from lack of nourishment, my excuse. I often wondered if being handsome was your way of accepting the rest of who you were. As you'd pick up your crutches and clumsily make your way to the bus, polio getting the best of you. So there was this Mr. Mackenzie, I'll call him. He used to have crutches and he had these braces around his knees, but he was very handsome and very strong upper body because he couldn't move his legs too well. So he had this, physical challenge, and I never understood that. But I always, you see things. That's what I do. I see things, and people aren't born racist. Or I was checking in the Cree app, and there's no word for racism in Cree. There's no word for sexism. There's no word for LGBTQ or gayism, all those. But interestingly, there was one word I thought, well, I'm going to check white man, because that's been like maybe a little conflict that I've had over the years, thinking that everything I could be blamed on white-skinned people. And then I looked in, and it said redneck. It was really kind of interesting. Why did they say redneck for white man? They had this description like that. And the old people, they called white people wapskuyo, white flesh beings, white flesh beings. And the other word was muniao, meaning the ones who are maybe lacking in knowledge of Indigenous people or Indigenous ways or the land. They were greenhorns, is what they say, muniao. These are terms I grew up with, and it was not really derogatory. Sometimes it was in like disciplinary matters, for example, is because there was differences between Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people, European settlers. Sometimes they would say, if you don't get home at the right time, or if you don't listen to me, or we're going to get you adopted to the white people, which of course happened, but that was one of the things they used to do. They used to tell us and warn us. So, people aren't born to discriminate other people, to have prejudice. They're made that way. So there's something in our education system that has to be changed. So one time I was sitting in at a friend's home, and there's this term that really kind of bothers me sometimes, and the term is native. Are you native? I said, yeah, I suppose I can. No, I am Nihil. I'm Cree. I'm native. But they always go back to the easy explanation or labeling. So I went home. The way that I deal with things is not to get upset so much, but take it in. I'm more internal when it comes to introspective, when it comes to experiences I have with people. I have some experiences that are kind of stronger, and I never reacted to them, and I wish I would have sometimes, but instead I would go and write a song or just reflect on it. So I wrote this one piece about this friend of ours, this kind of an elder, and it's from the French Canadian, but he adopted me. And I call this one Native This and That. I sit and listen to my Canadian elder talking about my native people. I'm polite as I listen. Once a story begins, it's a native thing not to interrupt. My politeness I learned from the new natives from Europe, now Canadians. I guess when they were called natives in their land, they too may have sat as I did when a friend or elder stopped by to tell them a story about their native people. So here we are in this conundrum as to what we ought to call one another: Native, Aboriginal, Indigenous, First Nations, First Peoples, Indian. I continue to listen to my friend, an elder, as my mind tries to imagine native, and politely say that those natives he is talking about were once native to their place, once inhabited by Siksika, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Maliseet, Mi'kmaq, Nihio, Nakota, Secwepemc, Haida, Dene, Lushu, Northern Tushone, Métis, Muskego, Innuit, Dakota, Lakota, and many more. As for myself, I am a Nihio. There's nothing native about that. If meaning, its meaning is the people of four bodies: physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional. Now we have refugees, immigrants, and that's a whole new native issue. So now what? So that's a little piece that I will one day go back and read to my elder friend from French Canadian. So thank you very much for listening. That's what I wanted to share with you for now. So we'll look forward to listening to the rest of the artists. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much again.
There we go. Thank you so much to Joseph. Those pieces were both incredible, and I think they spoke to the power of language, both as culture and as context to our experience in the world. And I'm looking forward to asking you some questions about that when we get to our Q&A. Next, I would like to welcome Peace Akintade to share with us. Peace is an African Canadian poet, spoken word artist, and sought after public speaker living in Saskatoon. She is the Saskatchewan Writers Guild Youth Poet Laureate for 2020 to 2021. Her poems touch on the impact of slavery in her village, colorism, growing up in Kuwait, Nigeria, and Canada, and relearning her culture in the face of colonization. Peace is a passionate performer with a powerful voice who brings energy and advocacy to her involvement with many community organizations. She is a former member of the Youth Advisory Council for the Tim Hortons Children's Foundation and presently part of the Youth Speakers Bureau for the Office of the Treaty Commissioner. I've had the opportunity to hear Peace perform on a number of different occasions, and I'm so excited to have her with us this evening. Yeah, she's incredible. And I'm really looking forward to seeing your piece.
For today, I wanted to talk about a road to self-love. While we're talking about diversity and inclusion, it's important to also talk about the love and the beauty that is our skin, that is our journey through life. So this is a road to self-love that I written just to appreciate nature and everything that it has done for us. Velvet periwheat brushed the dowry of our imagination. The sun smiles down on her people, sweet and peaceful, laughing at the mischief we surround ourselves in. The sun hums to slowly wake you up from deep sleep while we enclose ourselves in blankets made from smiles. Stay, enclosed in a safety forever, or at least until the moon screams. Do you know what smiles are? Smiles are plush cords pulled on either side by smooth textured memories. Memories softly tugged on our lips as if to say we are all right. Smile with your eyes, squished with your foreheads. Crow lines are storytellers, documenting a happy life, my love. If no one wakes you with tender cheerings anymore, you rely on nature to rock you slowly away from deep sleep. You rely on the trees to tickle you gently away from deep sleep. Why, my love? Do you stretch lazily in bed, filling up the epicranices of your bones stay, watching the murder of crows gossip your imperfections to no one? My mother's mantra slips into my ears. I am whole. I am twilled sweetness in one. I am trumpets pronouncing joy. I am beauty in the wind, color on the leaves, magic and wonder and everything in between. Repeat after me. I am stardust. I am chrism lollipops. I am the moment between laughter, silence between friends. I am whole, never alone. Repeat after me. The lilies and dragonflies strive unaware of their beauty. They worship the owls who are unknown to other animals. What more for our beauty to be more than the beholder? My grandma's lesson filters into my head. The air remains, the air is calm. Feel the trembles, fill your lungs. Thank nature, kiss the trees, and wonder if it kisses back. Imagine the warmth of a companion slip into your fingernails. Let the words of a friend nip the ache of loneliness. And let the earth softly wake you from deep sleep. Maybe one day those bad thoughts can go away from here, from here, from here, our bed. And as the murder of crows gossip with the trees, we laugh roughly, waking up on our own for the first time in years. The sun sings how proud she is.
Thank you.
Piece that so incredible. Would you like to share a little bit with us?
Yes. So when I wrote that piece, I was thinking about like anti-racism and discrimination, but it was also talking about who I am beyond my skin, beyond the prejudice that people put on me. And one thing that I have found is that whenever I feel like I have no place in the world, I think of nature and how forgiving it is on us. And if it's so forgiving, we can forgive ourselves and, in a way, start that healing process. So that poem was a accumulation of all of my thinking throughout the years that led to who I am as a being, who I am as a person, and I want to share with others that even though the world may seem against you, that you are never alone.
I think that's so beautiful. I had written down one of the lines, let the earth awake you from a deep sleep. And I think that really speaks to, you know, kind of like that process of regeneration and finding energy in a new season. And I'm sure as all of us have our fingers crossed that we're moving into spring and summer really quickly here, that people will really resonate with that at home. Thank you so much. And we'll see you in the Q&A.
Thank you.
Up next, I would like to introduce Dylan Rivers to share a performance and then a few remarks as well. Dylan is an emerging Indigenous hip hop artist from Saskatoon. His musical journey started with writing at the age of 11, following in his brother's footsteps. This led to putting out his own music at 15. Together with two local artists, the rap group Jackals was created. From the first performance with this group, Dylan fell in love with the rush of performing. From 2016 to 2018, Jackals performed at many local festivals, including Moso Fest and SWIFA, the Saskatchewan World Indigenous Festival for the Arts. Dylan is excited to be embarking on a solo career as an artist and looks for every opportunity to be involved as an activist and a leader in his community. Welcome,
Hey,
Dylan.
everyone. nation in a pit, then gave him sight, only just to be racist with it. So how do we erase the ignorance when it's such a bliss in this generation? They represent like an occupation, shun accusations as you dedicate proclamations. They harbor honoration, hard enough awarding an honorarium as the bigot fish of the aquarium. This anti-racism is only about it when the color skin ain't no problem. Ain't no problem, ain't no problem, nah. They question River, why you preaching about it? Well, imagine your baby saying he don't like them brown kids. Never told me why he said that, but it disrespected me more than just a dad. Damn. Where did he learn to feel like that? I don't know, but I'm gonna tell you this. I'll set it straight as I demonstrate to expose. But welcome to hate and anger, because at this rate the only danger is retaliation. It'll build till everyone is killed or incapacitated by their own ego to knock down my one and only hero. It takes a ton of work to tongue twist words, but not as worth to swallow my pride to present how hurt I'd even need to write this rhyme. And that's what sets us apart from the other side, is that we can speak from our minds while you jibber jabber behind the walls. You put up like Trump, we put up with chum, we crunch up the ones who crunch up the sums and use the middleman as the smoking gun, and you do it again when the little one's time to run. And without insight, they'll continue blind. You censor us because you know their minds are young, and the time has come for them to stand up and learn about us and the rest of the oppressed. Shit, the game started from this, and don't you forget. Stop Asian hate and recognize Black Lives Matter. Yeah.
Hi, Dylan. How's it going?
Hey, it's going good. It's going good. It's awesome to hear that again. I keep listening to that over and over, so it's just really amazing that you guys gave me the opportunity to record something like this.
What's the name of your song? Everyone wants to know.
Honestly, it was so quick. The only thing I do have labeled for it is anti-racism, just because I have a bunch of files of tracks and I needed something to stick out. And since all of them were labeled MP this, MP that, there was one that was named and it was anti-racism. So yeah.
Well, you know what? That fits the bill perfectly for this evening. Did you have
Thank
some
you.
remarks that you want to share with us tonight?
Yeah. Just mostly what the song is about. It was I would say maybe a month ago, 2 months ago. My son came home one day, and he has this friend that he had for years. And one day he just came home, and I asked how him and his friend were, and he told me that he doesn't want to play with her because she's brown. And at first I was like, what? Wait, back this up. And so I had to clear with him that, you know, she is brown, but she's not our brown. She can speak a different language, and it's different from what we speak. We speak English, while she speaks you know, she's from the Philippines. And yeah, and so it kind of threw me off, really, like it threw me off edge. I never expected something like that to come out from my son's mouth. But what makes me think that is that it's something either his other friends or what he watches or his school, you know, something around there is what triggered that thought of him. And what what I do is I think of 1,000 thoughts and I go with the worst conclusion. I know that's really bad, but in my head, that I feel like another kid maybe put that in his head. And what I'm thinking is maybe that kid heard that from his parents. You know, maybe his parents were having some inside joke or something out of the sorts, and they picked that up and they brought that to school because they thought that was funny. And my son overhears that, you know. And so this is just something that I really want, you know, bring awareness that, you know, it's not joking when you're being racist, especially around kids, and you're around kids. They pick up like that like sponges. And since I have a little one, his name is Noah, I needed to write this out, and I needed to get this out for other parents to know as well.
That's so incredible. Such an important message. I think Joseph was talking about the idea of racism being a learned behavior, you know, not something that's inherent within us. And I'm going to be really curious to talk to you about your thoughts on different generations and how they've experienced racism once we get to the Q&A.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right. And up next, we are going to be seeing a performance from Madeline Rawlick. Madeline is a second-year USask student studying marketing at the Edwards School of Business. She grew up dancing with the Boyan Ukrainian Dance Association and has been performing on stage in the Ukrainian Karpati Pavilion at Saskatoon Folkfest for as long as she can remember, which means that we were Folkfest neighbors. I'm sure you popped over to my pavilion, and I definitely popped over to yours more than once. Presently, she dances with the Boyan on tour and teaches dance with Boyan. Madeline is passionate about multiculturalism and social justice endeavors and works to incorporate activism in every part of her life. I'm really looking forward to seeing your performance here. I know that I am eternally envious of the red boots, so maybe you'll tell me where to get a pair after.
Absolutely. Thank you.
That performance was so fantastic, and it also just like absolutely makes me miss the energy of Folkfest so much. So thanks so much for sharing that with us.
Thank you for that. That was a performance from when my group Boyan on Tour performed in Ukraine. So that's all the way from 2018. But it was such an amazing experience, and I'm so happy to be on this panel right now. I'm so happy to be seeing people. Yeah, my involvement with Folkfest, similar to yours, that sounded like a very similar story where you were just kind of rehearsing and getting ready for it, like all summer, you know, from the time you're young. And now that kind of carries on to my life, like as an adult, is still really cool. I remember in 2019, obviously before the pandemic, we spent all summer, twice a week rehearsals, coming out with new numbers and all just such fun dances. And that's what I love about Folkfest is the joy that I get from like performing as an individual, but getting to go around to other pavilions and see that same joy come across from other performers, seeing that same like celebration of culture and energy in so many different places is just incredible. And I think the diversity that we have in Saskatoon, even as a relatively small city, is really remarkable. And I love the way that Folkfest brings all that together to celebrate. So yeah, I'm a Ukrainian dancer now with Boyan on Tour. I teach Ukrainian dance with the Boyan Ukrainian Dance Association, and being Ukrainian is like such a huge part of my life, and I love to see other people celebrating culture in similar ways from all different places. So yeah, this is a super awesome event, and I'm super happy that I get to be a part of it, and really grateful that I get to be here tonight.
Well, thanks so much for sharing that. I always joke that in Saskatchewan, everyone is a little bit Ukrainian, and I think that's because Ukrainian culture has been so warm and welcoming to everyone who calls Saskatchewan home. So I'm really grateful to you for having shared that performance, and looking forward to talking more in the Q&A. Okay, now up next, I am very happy to introduce you to Kiela. Kiela Caudillo is originally from Mexico, moving to Saskatoon in 2012 to pursue a master's degree at the U of S, where she currently works as an international partnerships specialist. In addition to her love for sciences, she's also passionate for Mexican music and other musical genres. Since 2013, she has been a highlight performer in the Central America and Mexico Pavilion at Saskatoon Folkfest, as well as performing at multiple cultural and social events across the province. Kiela is proud of her Mexican roots and takes every opportunity to share her culture and traditions through her voice, and to advocate for her local community service and the international community. Super, super pleased to have you with us tonight. I've also had the opportunity to see you perform on a number of different occasions. I think sometimes I've had to be a follow-up act to you. That's really hard. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing your video here.
Voz de la guitarra mía, al despertar la mañana, quieren cantar su alegría a mi tierra mexicana. Yo le canto a sus volcanes, a sus praderas y flores, que son como talismanes del amor de mis amores. México lindo y querido, si muero lejos de ti, que digan que estoy dormido y que me traigan aquí, que digan que estoy dormido y que me traigan a ti, México lindo y querido, si muero lejos de ti. Que me entierren en la sierra, al pie de los magueyales, y que me cubra esa tierra, que es cuna de hombres cabales. Yo le canto a sus volcanes, a sus praderas y flores, que son como talismanes del amor de amores. México lindo y querido, si muero lejos de ti, que digan que estoy dormido y que me traigan aquí, que digan que estoy dormido y que me traigan aquí, México lindo y querido, si muero lejos de ti.
Thank you.
Tiela, thank you so much for that performance. You can't see, but I was dancing in my seat. And my elementary Spanish tells me that that song was about Mexico, beautiful and cherished. But could you tell us a little bit more about the piece?
Yes, thank you, Natalia. Well, actually, I choose this song because it's very iconic for us Mexicans. It talks about not only how beautiful is Mexico, but it says about that someone who lives far from Mexico. It says that if it just happens that I'm die far from Mexico, please tell them that I'm asleep and bring me back to my land. So it's actually something that when you are far from your land, from your family, from your traditions, sometimes, and you feel homesick, and you think about that and feel like I wish I was there. I wish I was with my family and close to all the things that are familiar to me. And as you mentioned, I moved here to Saskatoon in 2012, and I had the great opportunity to join right away in 2013 the Folkfest. And as you said as well in your story, Natalie, that it was actually a great opportunity for me to keep sharing my culture, to feel like I was not in a completely different land with different people, but I found my community through the Folkfest. And since then, I've been able to share this music with all the people, all the people who wants to learn a little bit more about our Mexican culture. Now I feel like here is my home. Honestly, I feel like I'm really, really welcome. My son is almost 17 years old this year, and we've been feeling like we are at home. However, we don't forget our roots. And every time when I have the opportunity to share my music, I feel really honored and pleased, because I know that other people are interested to know more about us. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you very much for inviting me today and for this forum. And I'm very pleased to be here.
Well, thank you so much. We are honestly so honored to have you performing for us tonight. Any night, any opportunity. All of you are such incredible performers. I'm very excited to do a Q&A now. I love to ask questions. And I want to start off with a question. Maybe I'll ask Joseph first, because I know that storytelling is a big part of the work that you do, and a big part of your culture as well. What kind of role do you think that storytelling plays when we are trying to promote inclusion in the community? Oh, you're muted.
There are all kinds of stories. Yeah, there's stories that are appropriate and stories that are not appropriate, so you have to be a very good judge of character to determine whether those stories, you can confront people who tell stories that are inappropriate. I always tell people that my storytelling saved my life, because it's like one link to another, a chain link. Every story is connected to the next story. So when you have a story that's really powerful, for example, when Johnny Moses, who's from Washington State, told me about the time that he was profiled on a plane when he was wearing buckskin outfit, and long hair. He was profiled as maybe a Hollywood Indian, and he would just sit there and respond like a Hollywood Indian. And the gentleman who sat with him was a businessman with his three-piece suit, and he was really wanting to understand Indigenous people, so he had an opportunity. And Johnny Moses is sitting first class. And so he turns over to Johnny Moses, "Do you come from a reservation?" And Johnny Moses never heard anybody speak like that. So all he did was just, So he reacted the way the gentleman was responding to him. And he kept asking him question. After a while, his throat was getting sore as he kept saying, and he asked him, "Do you live in a TPM? Do you live in a TPM?" "Oh," Johnny Moses in his mind says, "No, I don't live in a TPM. I live in a condominium." And so the short end of it, they both stood up when the plane landed, and Johnny Moses confronted him. "You have a very interesting language." And the man turned all red, And then Johnny Moses, being Johnny Moses, says, "No, who is the red man here?" And got off the plane, and he gave a pamphlet. He said, "Come to my talks. You obviously don't know too much about my people." So off they go, and then his first talk, there's a gentleman right in front, and that was the man that he met in the plane, and he was more casually dressed. And he sat there for 2 hours or longer just to listen and learn about Indigenous people. And the same thing. And the next one. After a while, they exchanged numbers and they became friends. So they made contact after that. So stories like that are very powerful. So I really live in story no matter where I go. It's part of our way, I believe, of getting to know each other. If you know my story, you'll get to know me. And if I know your story, I'll get to know you. But let's really know each other's story. That's how powerful they are, Natalia. Thank you for asking about stories.
Does anybody else have any thoughts on storytelling that they would like to jump in with?
I can go.
Peace.
That's what I was hoping for.
Yeah, similarly in my culture, storytelling is important, but in a way that an artist is also important. Uh, like there was one situation where this kid was found stealing food um, from the market, and obviously the right thing to do would be to take the police to the justice system. But instead, they took the boy to the storyteller. So the storyteller now put them all in a circle and did a story about the tortoise and how when the tortoise stole from all of his friends and didn't tell them why, then when the fox wanted to grab the turtle, nobody helped him. So then that story helped the little boy, and the little boy now confessed that he was stealing money and food so that he could like help his mother who was going through poverty. So when the villagers now heard that that was the reason why the boy stole, they now helped the boy by bringing in food and money to the mother. So in a way, storytellers are also advocates for those that are unheard, for the voiceless. And I feel like that's why artists are kind of should be put in a big regard because of they take the situation, the issues, and put it in a plate and present it in a way that helps everyone in the situation. Um, so that's how I feel like storytellers are quite important in social issues.
That's so wonderful. And thank you for sharing the story with us also. So I think that this is one of the things that you're kind of speaking to there with storytelling and art itself being so powerful. And I maybe want to ask Kiela this, but why do you think that art as a medium is so compelling and brings us such transformative energy?
Oh, that's a very good question. I also wonder myself, because it's just an emotion that just came out. And it's actually very interesting the way that I see music. I've been singing my whole life since I remember, and it's always kind of a need that I always have. I've had a couple episodes in my life when I thought that I won't be able to sing anymore back home in Mexico. And actually, when I recently moved to Canada, because, I didn't know anyone. And so who's going to be inviting me to sing with them? So when I had those episodes in my life, I actually was kind of going crazy because I need to express myself through my voice. And it really helps you to understand. I don't know, it's a way to communicate with people, even though I'm doing it in different language. And it's interesting because I also sing in English and in Portuguese, but when I sing in Spanish, I feel more passion, and I also feel that the audience can engage with me in different way than if I'm singing in English, for example. So singing actually has been opening doors. It's been giving me the opportunity to meet other people. It's been giving me the opportunity to express myself, to heal myself, my soul, my mind, and as well to communicate, to say, my culture. So I think it's many things are involved in the art of expression, you know, your art through music, poems, painting, sculpturing. So yeah, I think everyone has to explore those talents. And even if you don't feel like you're talented, we always are good in something. If you are not good, you just keep trying, because still you're gonna feel much better.
I really love that. I think that you're speaking to that idea of transformation, of connection, of understanding, but also of healing. And I think that art also has some really incredible healing properties. And I'm wondering if anybody has any thoughts on art as a way to heal.
I know for me, I've had some like pretty serious like physical injuries in my lifetime, and actually 6 months right before I went on stage in Ukraine, I had a really serious injury. I fractured my L2 vertebrae and injured my ankles and cracked some other things. So I was like not walking, like horizontal. It was going to be a long time before I could like move and dance again, and that was pretty scary to experience as a 16-year-old at the time. But I remember that I wanted to get back in the studio like as soon as possible, and the second that I could stand again without things hurting, or the second that I could stand at the bar and practice even simply like a plie, was so exciting. And even though I couldn't dance right away as I could before, taking time to kind of rebuild those movements really, really slowly, and to appreciate and have that like sense of gratitude then for my art and what I could do with my friends and family was really transforming, I'll say. So the fact that I was able to perform in Ukraine, definitely not pain free. I was still experiencing a lot of symptoms of injury, but the fact that I made it there, I would say is, huge evidence of healing. But it just taught me a whole new like appreciation for movement in general. And now I feel that every time I step foot in the studio, I'm so grateful that I get to be there with other people and get to celebrate not only something that's cultural and artistic, but something that's just like freeing, right? That movement is such a gift, and that gratitude is something I'll never forget. So I definitely feel like my art and dance and things like that healed me at the time. And even once I experienced injuries after that fact, always getting back in the studio is what makes me feel better, what makes me feel like connected to my roots and who I am as a person. And I hope that I get to do that art for as long as I can.
Thank you so much, Madeline. That was really beautifully put. You're also obviously incredibly resilient. I'm sure that I would have given up pretty much immediately and been posted on the couch after that. So it's amazing that you're still able to get on stage and to perform. Anybody else have any thoughts that they want to add on that idea of healing? Go ahead, Joseph.
Just a quick note. When I heard Kayla singing, I was really it was very moving, and it's your story, because singing had to be my way of releasing a lot of emotions that were stuck. I guess you could say they were blocked. I was very blocked for at the age of 20. When I was 20 years old, I was absolutely no voice. I could hardly move my mouth. I was very monotone. I'd have no range. And I often couldn't be heard. People would have to say, what, the people often did that. Sometimes I have to catch myself. It's so art is healing is a good way to pose the question, but also healing becomes the common denominator once you start using your art. You become the healer as well. So I see that in all these young people. And when I started singing and I released so much stuff, and I didn't realize that I was exercising what I was going to be doing for the next 60 years or more. And then I got into, I'm also into movements. I have to move, as a survivor of residential school, you need to do many things. You need to be a singer, you need to be a dancer, you need to be a writer, you need to do all these things. You just have to have several disciplines. There's no time in a lot of ways to be bothered by anything, discursive or distracting. You know, I never really had time to really think about racism or, you know, that sort of thing, anything to do with people who try and treat me, you know, I was too busy healing, busy trying to, I guess, regain what I thought I'd lost as an Indigenous person after 13 years of being in a residential school. I just finished a song right now that's about the time when I was a little child. Is taken from my grandparents, you know. So I just finished this song. I wanted just to record it, and it's called "Born from Dirt." So I just finished that. I'm 68, so I always come from the lens of art. So thank you for asking that question, Natalia.
That sounds like a really incredible piece. And I know that piece actually also has a piece where she talks about that idea of the earth and soil and how that's where we all come from. So the two of you could collaborate and maybe put together a poetry anthology. I'd love to see that. Okay, so Dylan, I have a question for you here. You ready? And my question is, how do you think that your generation has been approaching these conversations about inclusion, about diversity differently than previous generations?
Not where I'm from, there's not much people like me. There's not people who try to stand up and voice the opinions of much other Native Americans. So it's really hard for me to know more people. It's more people out of my neighborhood. I know some people at Choke Cherries who are as well as who I can, you know, talk to about this stuff, as well as my mother. She is an activist as well. So it's been something that I've been, you know, holding in for a long time, just because I didn't know how to voice it for the proper, I don't know what word I'm looking for. I'm trying to voice the opinions of myself and the other natives that I know who wish they could speak up, but they can't, or they're too, they feel like they're too blocked out to speak up. And so I feel like it's my job as an artist to speak up for not only myself, but the other people who are who need that push, you know. I want to be the motivator. I want to be the leader towards these people. And so that's where I see myself.
That was really beautiful. Thank you for sharing. I think that you've chosen such an incredible medium for that as well. I know that hip hop has been connecting generations for decades now. And I think that that's such an impressive way of being able to engage with young people and share some of the visions that you might have for the future. It wouldn't be a COVID panel without me asking about how your experiences over the past year have been. So I'm also wondering how the last year has changed the relationship that some of you might have to your art.
Well, for dance, it being such a social thing, I'm used to dancing in a studio with like 30 different people. And in that dance, you're like arms connected, doing lifts, touching each other and sweating together. And so when that couldn't happen initially, I was prepared for a break. But I think coming back to the studio has been its own challenge. Now that we're all separate and, you know, there's way fewer people in the studio and we're wearing masks the whole time, it feels super different. And although I'm so grateful that I get to be in the studio, I miss that sense of connection that comes from just being physically close with people, as I'm certain we all feel by now. But I'd say that's definitely integral to Ukrainian dance, is that partner work and that ability to get like really close on stage and to have lots of people on stage. So I look forward to that opening up, because that joy is there of being in the studio, but I think the joy of being just that much closer to the people is something I need again.
Lots of head nodding. Kiela, why don't you go ahead? I saw that you were ready to speak.
Yes, well, I agree with Madeline. You know, with music as well, it's been really challenging not to be able to sing live. I've been actually participating in some pre-recorded events, including the Folk Fest as well. But yes, it's very different. I really struggled at the beginning of the pandemic because I thought that, again, I'm not going to be able to sing. So it was frustrating, but I'm very happy that everything started moving like virtually, and to have these opportunities like today to share, to keep sharing my music, even though, as Natalie says, the connection is not the same. However, still a great opportunity. I'm just looking forward that everything is going to be open again, and hopefully we are going to get back, hopefully, to the Folk Fest, Jazz Festival, and all the festivals that we can enjoy, being together and touching each other.
The first Folk Fest back after the pandemic is going to be a wild time. Everyone's just going to be on stage. It's just going to be an entire group performance because no one will be able to hold back.
That's right.
Joseph, did you have something that you wanted to add there?
Yeah, it's been actually in some ways a shock, because all of a sudden you have wads of time to be creative, to do the things that you always planned as you were driving down the highway down. So I spent many years doing that, and all of a sudden there's this open door of creativity. And so it was hard to get, back into it, because now all of a sudden you're kind of sink or swim, survive, you still have to survive. So you had to find another way to I guess, put food in the fridge, for example, right? You had to find another way, and that all this technology, all this Zooming has become the new way of being, I guess, employed or being fed, so that's what I've been doing a lot of that. It seems like the schools I used to visit and just interact. It's so weird, trying to interact with a computer, and you see kids, on screen, and you can't really get that close, and they're usually right in front of you, or else if you're performing on stage, you just have to do what you can, in that time that you have. So that's my take on that.
Thank you so much. Now, I know Dylan spoke a little bit about culture and activism and allyship, and I'm wondering, and this is open to anyone who would like to answer, how sharing your culture with the community has inspired your activism, your advocacy, and also your allyship. Peace, I saw you at a couple of rallies this summer, so I'll let you go.
Yeah, it's been a difficult journey, finding the time to share my culture in a way that does not harm me, but liberates and empowers me. Because it's so easy for life to become a trauma dump, for your art to become a way to express your frustration and your anger. And I try not to do that with my art. I try to see it as a place of healing. So when it came to my culture, I really wanted to shift the narrative, shift how I can view it in a way that still has all the significance, but also has kind of how I have grown with my identity. So when it was during, I think, last year, during the height of the Black Lives Matter movement, is when I was almost put into the limelight of having to face who I am as a person, what the part of my identity is that I was trying to kind of subvert so much, because I always wanted to be positive. I wanted to live in that bubble of positivity. So while sharing and talking with people, um, and talking about my culture, I found this amazing thing, because by talking about who you are and how you're trying to discover who you are helping someone else also talk about who they are too. And from there, you could get to see the similarities and the differences between those two cultures, and in a way, start to get educated on places that you might not have known. Because of when one door opens for another, another door is opening for someone else, unrelated. It becomes a domino effect of people learning from each other, and the education becoming more and more.
Like I learned during the Black Lives Matter movement, I also learned about the Indigenous Lives Matter and also Asian Lives Matter, and all of those issues kind of correspond with each other. And it did not just become me being in a bubble by myself, but me actually being in a room full of many people. And I guess that's how a way that me discovering a little bit about my culture also helped me discover about other people's culture. And we helped each other and became not just about me, it became about us as individuals and also as a community.
I see lots of heads nodding after that piece. Dylan, did you have any thoughts that you wanted to add?
You know, for me, I realized that a bunch of diversity comes from music. For me, it comes from hip hop. You know, it started off with, you know, African Americans, and then not only them, but I started hearing people, you know, from other you know races, all doing a pitch in either in a hip hop, R&B, a rap type of way, and so that's what made me feel like music has no color, you know. So I hope that that kind of puts it into a perspective that hopefully that everyone can see the way I see music, is that it's not a race thing. Um, you know, you could be a Caucasian artist, a Black artist. Um, you can be uh, a Native artist. You know, you could just be a bunch of different artists. You don't even have to be those singular artists. There's artists that are half Asian and half African, and you know, there's just so many different complex races inside the genres in a singular genre. There's not one genre that cancels out any other race, and so to me, I feel like I can get more people to look at more of this anti-racism, you know, discrimination, sexism. You know, I feel like I can get all those ears and all those minds wrapped around the concept that, you know, music has no color. So, yes.
I really, really love that contribution. And it actually reminds me of something. At Folkfest, the Caribbean Pavilion often has performers who come from Latin America, and Kiela's smiling because she's performed at our pavilion before. And we get a lot of questions about why there is, you know, like a Bollywood Bhangra style dance happening on our stage, or why we have someone singing in Spanish on our stage. But I think that the world has seen people, you know, cross borders for centuries. Slavery brought people from all over the world to the Caribbean. Colonization has carried cultures from one country to the next, also erased some cultures from some of the countries. But I think that that kind of spirit of sharing and the universality of music is something that makes it so meaningful to us as people. Kiela, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, yes, actually, well, we are all neighbors of the same planet, right? So I don't see why we cannot share that, right? So yeah, as you mentioned, I was part of the Caribbean Pavilion. I also participated in the Greek one and in the Indian one for very like many hours, and it was really interesting how people were seeing, you know, some people really don't take it very well, and another people were very happy to have like a guest and bring more diversity to the shows, even though the shows were very specific for a region. But in particular, as I say, you know, for me, singing it's a way to transmit my emotions, to heal myself, and to transmit my culture, and how other people take it. You know, I have no control about that. I really hope that they can enjoy and they can understand that, yeah, this is another way that we can connect each other or cultures, because yet we live in this community who is multicultural. So it's a way to connect and say, hey, everyone is here, everyone is the same, everyone wants to share this culture. And I also want to mention that singing Mexican music has helped me as well to communicate with my son. As I mentioned, I came here about 9 years ago. My son was 8 years old. Now he's almost 17. And now he's growing as any other Canadian teenager. However, he has very clear his roots and the Mexican culture without discriminating from this new culture that he's growing up and the culture that we came from. It's very interesting how he doesn't see those as a big differences. He knows that he's Mexican. He knows that Mexican music is important for us, but he doesn't see those differences too much. You know, it's very interesting how my son, as a young immigrant, he can blend these cultures so well, and I've been learning so much from him of the way that he sees life and sees everything. And he's a great teacher. He's a great teacher to me because also I'm from another generation. So he always correct myself, like, you don't say this thing, you don't say that things, you don't make this kind of comments because it's not correct, because we are kind of the same thing, right? So I just wanted to mention that because, yeah, music helped me to communicate with my son too.
As someone who works with young people all day, most of every day, I can't tell you how beneficial they are for correcting you and making sure that you're using all the correct language. Madeline, did you have any thoughts on culture and allyship advocacy?
Yeah, absolutely. So from, I mean, my position and how I've grown up, like the word culture, right? The word Ukrainian has only sparked like joy in me, right? Like I get just so excited thinking about, you know, dance and Ukrainian traditions as it, you know, relates to times of the year and, you know, holidays and things like that, and stories. And the more involved I can get with my culture, the more excited I am. And especially being a Ukrainian person in Saskatchewan, I have never faced an individual who has pretty much anything to say about that. Everyone says that's awesome, you know, and then it's because it's so common here, and there's a lot of Ukrainians, and I think well, I can recognize now, especially that I, you know, am a member of a privileged group that way, and there's a lot of other cultures, you know, in Saskatchewan specifically, and everywhere around the world that don't experience that same joy, right? There's external forces, and there's you know, types of oppression that are still in place today that exist to stamp out that joy, right? And to discriminate against those other cultures. And recognizing that I'm so, you know, blessed and privileged to have just this only positivity associated with my own. I want to find ways within my communities and, you know, within my school and everyone I'm with to make sure that everyone from all different backgrounds get to experience that same joy, because it's not right that any group is oppressed, obviously, but I want to know, or I want to do everything that I can to make sure that no matter where someone is from, they feel that, yeah, just awesome, that energy, right? Without any sort of oppression or discrimination or prejudice that's so prevalent. So within my circles, I take the time always to make sure that those other groups are celebrated and that diversity is encouraged in all ways.
I really appreciate that. And I think that that's one of the things that Folkfest offers to our community, and any of us that participate know that, you know, you do get to have those moments of joy sharing your culture with the rest of the community, people on stage, people dancing, people singing. And I think that that's, you know, part of what I have as a vision for society going forward is just a celebration and embracing other people and their diverse cultural backgrounds. So I'm so happy to have people like you working towards that same common goal. Go ahead, Joseph.
I'd like to recommend that they have a role, you know, for somebody to be an international cuisine inspector. I probably would apply for that job. Some of my favorite experiences are around food. So I love all kinds of food. I've been traveling all over. You know, if you travel and get to know other countries, I've been to India, right? I've been to the UK. I'm part English, you know, I have a little bit of English blood, so I've traveled over there. I've been to Mexico, just barely Mexico. And we have relatives that are related in the Indigenous countries that are Mexican Creamix in Saskatchewan, you know, in Thunderchild, in Monero, I don't know where else. You know that Dillade, right? There's that kind of I guess you could say, developing good relations, or that's just what happens, you know, when people come together. And so that's my, you know, the thing that I'm seeing a lot is social media. a lot of young people are going back into the language, into beadwork, into asking about songs. They're asking about how to say this and that. So language has played a really important role in social media. That's what I've noticed lately. People are using it as a way of returning to their language and their culture. It's a huge thing. You should see it on Facebook every day. You see Simon Bird. You see all these people, asking questions about that. So it's unbelievable. Our festival is the powwow. The powwow in the summertime. That was like our. So you don't see a lot of our people, Indigenous people at the folk fest because it's simultaneous as the folk fest. It happens. We're out there drumming and we're out on the land. So it's good to, I guess, I hope there's a lot of Indigenous people watching this, because this is a beautiful panel here, what I'm hearing, and we're just getting a cross section from all over of people just sharing, just right from their soul. So thank you.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Joseph. I know one of the things that I have absolutely missed the most over the past year has been the powwows and being able to be out on community or, out at beardies, enjoying that. It's kind of funny, but my dad, like I mentioned, is from the Caribbean, but there are a lot of similarities between the Caribbean and Indigenous people in Canada. First of all, like being from St. Lucia, we're technically West Indians because, of course, Christopher Columbus got lost a number of times on his journeys. And so there's more than one group of, Indians or Indigenous people in the world. But we also have celebration almost kind of similar to powwow called Carnival, where everyone has their own outfit that they get to wear and, listen to music, play music, and enjoy that and have that kind of connection to culture. So I'll be very glad when we can return to some of those celebrations in person and feel that energy together. I have one last question that I want to ask. And again, this would be open to anyone to answer. But for those of us that are joining at home who maybe haven't had the opportunity to engage in some of these conversations about diversity, about inclusion, about anti-racism, like where's the best place to start and how can I engage with this kind of work?
Well, I can say something about that. I would say, if they're just recently newcomers, it's always good to engage with people from your community, but not kind of enclosed just there. Be open to get to know other people from other backgrounds. I would say, Folkfest, it was a great opportunity because it was open to everyone. And I think actually when I came here in 2012 just to study at the Language Center, the first interaction I had with other Mexicans was in the Folkfest, just before, a year before I actually moved here. And I think that was a great place to get to know people from your country, or at least that shares the same joy that your culture. But if you're just recently coming, I would say go to the Open Door Society. They are very open and they have a lot of programming for helping people to settle and to network around and to actually find a life here. And another opportunity, well, since I work at the University of Saskatchewan, it has been my home as well since I moved here. I would say that the University of Saskatchewan, if you're a student, well, you will have a lot of resources where you can ask for help and to understand how to live in this multicultural environment, which is awesome. That will be my recommendation.
Thank you so much. Excellent recommendations, of course. Anybody else have any thoughts?
They have a lot of Indigenous social gatherings in town here. Like just recently at the Shakespeare on the Saskatchewan, like on the weekend, there was a Facebook, there was some young people that started singing round dance songs, just for the world. And people from all over the world tuned in. And I forget the name of it, but they just went down there. So that facility is available for anyone to use. And so it was so good to see it live, broadcast across the world. ITEP, Indian Teacher Education Program, often hosts cultural events. Sometimes they have round dances, or the University of Saskatchewan, the Red Bear Center. They host those things. Although they're not happening now, but there's still some things that are online. And it's kind of tricky to make your way through social media. So you got to be lucky to find them, but you might, if you know somebody that can connect you, that would be one thing, I guess, that can connect you to what's happening in Indian country, as they say. That's today. That's kind of like the place to. That's where I go. Sometimes I'll just check what's happening, and then I'll just, okay, I'll check this out. This is music. This is what I like, or else I'll go somewhere else. So that's usually what I do. I just cruise, at the moment, and there's no place at the moment. But I stick around with people who do yoga. So I have that Eastern tradition to background, right? So I've also been invited by Muslims, to do talks and that. So I mix with anybody. People invite me. They used to have an interfaith gathering here downtown at the church for many years. And I used to go there and sing on behalf of myself and also I guess, indigenous people, but mostly for myself. Artists, we're about performing. We're about our art, our way of doing it, right? So thank you for asking that question.
Go ahead, Dylan.
So for me, I just went along with when I was young. I went to rallies. I went to multiple things just to follow my mom around, just because couldn't get a babysitter. I was young, so I started off young in the activism, being an activist. But what I've learned is that from multiple people, it's not who you know or where you can go to get this stuff. It's who you are. Because I know a lot of people who started from nothing and built an organization into something big. And all you need is yourself, a couple of good friends who see the same side as you do, and start building from there. And so what I'm saying is that people who are watching, if you can't find a place, be the place.
Mm-hmm. Right on.
Incredible, just incredible. Peace, go ahead.
Yeah, for me, what really helped when I first came to Saskatoon was going to workshops from various people, any kind that I could find. It didn't have to necessarily be connected to anti-racism, but it could just be listening to someone talk about their dreams and their vision and their art from various backgrounds. And having that insight of who they are apart from their art and their vision, it helps almost put a relatability into it. Because I feel like a lot of people that come into that first begin wanting to find resources for anti-racism and discrimination come with the headset that it is this giant pie. Let's say it's a giant pie that is so huge and we can never truly consume it. So what they want to do is they want to jump right head first into the middle of it and eat around it. But what should be done is taking a bite of it little by little, by little by little, sharing some piece with someone else, taking that piece and giving it to someone else. And before you know it, by everyone coming in together, the pie is finished. If you come in with the headspace that this is such a big issue that only that I cannot able to accomplish it, it becomes discouraging. But again, you are never alone in finding it. There will always be someone else that is in the same boat that wants to continue that journey. A bit of advice just from someone that has been on the receiving end of others asking for anti-racism, it would help to go to someone that is trained to talk about it. Not going to a friend and asking them what's your experience with discrimination. Sometimes it can be harming for both parties. So going to workshops, going to places that are trained to talk about these issues can really help. Um, Unless the friend has consented to wanting to talk about this and wanting to share their experiences. But it's really beneficial to read books and to visit people that have the equipment and the resource to help you.
I think that's such a valuable point. Like, so often education is put onto the shoulders of people who are marginalized or people who are oppressed to deal with, in addition to other barriers that they might be facing. And so finding people in the community who are willing to be allies, willing to take on some of that burden, can be so helpful to all of us and really helps to lighten the weight and to use your example piece to share the responsibility in putting together all the pieces of the pie, which now I'm just thinking about pie. So also thank you for that.
Just a quick thing.
Yeah, no, go right ahead, Joseph.
Just a quick word, I'm a lodge keeper, a sweat lodge keeper, and everything around the sweat lodge, is, for me, it's like a bridge, it's like people who want to enter into the Nihiawin or Nihiawin Peaks Cree culture, Cree worldview. It's the place that I find myself doing teachings. So when you go to ceremonies and that, you find out a lot about how the people in this territory, like, how they think, how they feel, what they're like. You're getting to know them that way. And so I always open my door to invite them to come and join us. We've had people from all over the world come sometimes, just out of the blue. They'll just show up, and all of a sudden I'll meet them at the coffee shop, and I'll say, "Oh, so you're searching for something, searching for meaning or understanding." He says to me, "Well, we have a sweat lodge that can take you, so just come with me." So I have that kind of a opportunity all the time, that that's created for me. It's like, seems like I attract that. So I'm an open vessel for that. So I always invite people to, come and have coffee with me or give me a call, and and I'll help them get around town here. I'm in Saskatoon. I've been here for many years, so a bit of a icon, a tree.
That's so. That's so generous, Joseph, and I'm sure that so many people have learned so much from you. I think that we all have, just hanging out for an hour and a half tonight, so I can imagine the impact that you've had on the community over the years. If anyone in the audience is interested in asking questions, we are certainly open to that. But I think that'll also give each of the artists an opportunity to plug themselves. So if there's somewhere where people can follow you or keep up with your work, we would love to hear that as well. Kielo, why don't you go ahead?
Well, thank you. Well, as I mentioned, I've been actually participating in different virtual events. I just happened to be in one last weekend, pre-recorded as well, for the International Day for the Elimination of the Racial Discrimination with the Rock Against Racism. So you can also follow their social media, and you will find a lot of videos, and I've been participating for several years already. But nothing coming soon, unfortunately. I hope that the Folk Fest is happen. I think the Jazz Festival is not happening neither, but anyways, I just want to populate a little bit more about what we were talking before with Dylan, Joseph, piece, that, when you find yourself like a little bit stranded in the environment, you can switch that feeling and that thought into the advocacy. So yeah, I also invite everyone who is listening right now and watching us that it's very easy to get into the vicious communications of negative thoughts and sharing only bad things, and racism is everywhere. Back home in Mexico, I suffer from a lot of racism and sexism, and coming here actually was less, but it's still a little bit there in different places. But you can switch the channel in your brain and say, well, then I'm going to do something about it, do advocacy, get to meet with people with similar thoughts but in the positive way, and help others to overcome their very personal situations. I think that's a really, really great way to move forward in this environment. And now that everyone is isolated, I think we have all these comments in the social media and the censoring and all these kind of things. I think it's an opportunity for the new generations as well to step up and advocate for people who actually need more help or more guidance. And as P said, find as well someone who really know about it, not just anywhere. And I would like to go for a coffee with you, Joseph. I think I would like to have a conversation with you. That would be great.
Thank you. Just give me a call. I'll check. Are you on Facebook? Are you on Twitter or
I'm on
Instagram?
Facebook. Kiela Caudillo or Kiela Latina, and also Instagram, Kiela Latina. You can find me there.
Okay, that's one of my favorite dances. I want to show you something. I just finished this year. This is a new song. It's just a one song, and it's old CD, right? The old CD way of doing things. But I wanted to put down that song I was telling you about, "Born from Dirt," and so you could. It's going to be released soon, so watch for my Facebook post, and I'll probably put it on there, and there'll be a release with my collaborator here, this Cheryl Larondel. Oops, over here. She was the one who helped me produce and kick my butt and just to get on with their singing. So I have a single here. So if anybody's interested, or even just drop by, I'll give you one. And some of them we're going to send them out to radio stations and just put a press release here pretty quick. So that's what I've been doing lately. So you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Not so much as a performer, but I'm just more or less available, to talk about the arts, and let's go for coffee, like Kayla says. That's what we live to do.
Thank you so much for sharing, Joseph. Did anybody else have anything that they wanted to share, socials or anything?
I know you can find me on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn, just like the rest, all under Madeline Rawlick, which isn't too hard to find. But that's typically how I post things that I find and try to uplift other voices there through like stories and things like that. And that's, where I love to interact with people that, you can't see so much these days because we're so virtual. But Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn for me.
Beautiful. Thank you. Peace. How about you?
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, my name. You can use my name. I'm also, if you have time tomorrow, I'm doing a show with Broadway Theater for their Winterruption festival. And it's really great. The lineup is wonderful. And I always feel honored whenever I'm in a lineup because I'm like, what the heck? Why am I here? But I'm doing a set that includes film. So it's going to be like my first time doing that kind of thing. I really wanted for this year to kind of insert poetry into every art media, kind of sneak in poetry here and there. But that's going to be my first film poetry hybrid sort of project. So I'm really excited for it. So Facebook, Instagram, tomorrow. Yeah.
That sounds incredible. I'm really looking forward to that Winterruption show. Great lineup, and I am sure that you'll be a star amongst all other performers. And Dylan, where can we find you and follow your music career?
So I have decided that the Facebook that I am using is only going to be my personal Facebook. Starting from maybe when I have more projects made. I've never had an Instagram before, and so I'm pretty hyped to open up one of those for my music career, as well as other multiple social media platforms that I'd love to make. Just because I like to get out there. But for now, the only place that you can reach me at is Facebook at River Cody, COTE, and as well as my email, river-cody@outlook.com. I got multiple projects happening right now with this place called Choke Cherry. They have a zine. So I got some work into there if you guys want to see that anytime. As well as the Remy Mod, sorry, I can't pronounce it. The Remy Mod, the museum downtown. My speech is not really doing the best job right now, sorry. Has also contacted me for a project to help them, describe art the way I see it. And so, you can go look on their website The opening exhibit I'll have more of the opening date of the exhibit of the museum on my Facebook as well. And that's River Cody, COTE.
I'm certain that that's going to be absolutely incredible, and I'm sure that we'll all be name dropping you and letting people know that we know an artist who's featured at the Remy. That's super awesome. Thank you again to everyone for joining us for this conversation. It's been really fun and super enjoyable way to pass the evening, and so I'm just so grateful for you all being here tonight. To wrap up this evening's program, I'm going to invite Anika Misha from the Folkfest board to take us out.
Thank you, everyone. I hope you guys can hear me clearly. Perfect. So it was a great event. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. And it was great to learn how you all share your emotions, your feelings, everything through different form of arts. And I'm going to start my closing remark with a quote from Jimmy Carter. So he once said, "We have become not a melting pot, but a beautiful mosaic. Different people, different beliefs, different yearnings, different hope, and different dreams." So we take diversity and inclusion to the next level. We need to remove it from its silo, and we need to bake it into the way we live, what we value culturally, and how we evaluate things. We will get there when we all embrace diversity and inclusion as our responsibility. We know how hard it is to make a sweeping change, but we have to start today. Tangible changes are deeply rooted in both persistence and patience. A huge thanks to all the speakers and the performers for your valuable insights and participation. A huge shout out to everyone who's joining us from different channels, different media, and we're excited to continue learning from each other, share our experience, and cultivate diversity and inclusion in our society. I will now pass it on to Kishore.
Good.
Thank you all the participants and speakers. By sharing your experiences, you have motivated all of us to contribute more to the inclusiveness in this broader community. Thank you.
I just wanted to say that listening to all of you guys, it was amazing. Thank you all for taking the time and sharing your talent, your voices, your experiences, your story with us today. As part of the Folkfest committee, I think we are all very proud of what we have going on, and we are hoping to, have a Folkfest this year if everything goes great. And once again, just thank you all for being here, and thank you for all those that tuned in to be here with us tonight.
Yeah, I think just a lovely round of applause and snaps for everyone who participated this evening. It was such a wonderful time, and we're really glad that you were able to join us.